All right, let's dive right in. Today we're looking at a pretty wild framework called Fractal Resonance Cognition, and it makes a claim that is, well, staggering, that it might just be the source code of reality itself. Okay, so this quote just throws you right into the deep end, doesn't it? It's basically saying that things we think of as soft and fuzzy, like love, are actually hardwired into the basic math of the universe. It's trying to build a bridge between the cold, hard laws of physics and, the very essence of what it means to be alive. And that really brings us to the central question here. What if there's a single, universal law of change that applies to absolutely everything? We're talking from the rise and fall of empires, to why a startup succeeds or fails, and maybe even to consciousness itself. So here's how we're going to unpack this. First, we'll look at the core claim. Then we'll break down the formula it proposes. After that, we'll see the bigger picture it fits into. Then we'll test it against some real-world examples from the source material. And finally, we'll get into the really mind-bending implications.
Okay, first up, the biggest, most audacious claim of this whole system, that there is a single, quantifiable, predictable law that actually governs how things transform. Any complex system, any change, one law.
So how in the world does a law like that work? Well, let's try to decode what the source material calls the God formula and really break it down piece by piece to see what's under the hood. And here it is. I mean, look at that. It seems almost ridiculously simple. The idea is that change, which is delta S, is just the product of three key things: resonance, potential, and coherence. That's it.
So that first variable is R, for resonance. The easiest way to think about this is readiness. Is the system ready for a change? Is the culture ready for a new idea? Is the market ready for a new product? High resonance means everything is aligned. The timing is just perfect.
Next up is psi, or potential. This is the raw fuel. It's the pent-up energy, the tension in the system waiting to be released. You can have a super resonant system, but if there's no potential, no problem to solve, no energy to unleash, then, well, nothing's gonna happen.
And the final piece of the puzzle is C, for coherence. This is maybe the most important part. It's all about execution. You can have perfect timing and massive potential, but if you can't act on it efficiently, it all just falls apart. High coherence means every part of the system is working together, flawlessly.
Now, this formula doesn't just exist on its own. The source material claims it's just one component of a much, much bigger structure, basically an operating system for reality itself. And this operating system is built in layers called mu levels. You can kind of think of it like a ladder. Down at the bottom, you've got the purely physical stuff, our bodies, physics, biology. Then as you climb up, you get into the more abstract, symbolic layers, things like language, logic, and even myth. And then way up at the very top, there's this proposed layer of pure unified consciousness.
Okay, now get this. To make all this stuff actually measurable, the framework introduces an idea called a resonance unit, or RU. I mean, the ambition here is just incredible. They're talking about creating a standard unit, like a volt or a meter, but for consciousness itself, a way to actually quantify awareness, whether it's in you, me, or a future AI.
So this all sounds really interesting in theory, but the big question is, does any of it actually work? Well, the source material tries to backtest the formula against some really interesting real-world examples, from huge historical events to the dot-com bust. Take a look at this. Now, obviously, these scores are just interpretive, they're not hard data, but they illustrate a really key point. The argument is that the Protestant Reformation created lasting change because it had high coherence. Thanks to the printing press, the message was clear and spread efficiently. The French Revolution, on the other hand, had tons of energy and potential, but super low coherence. It was chaotic, and that chaos meant it couldn't create stable, lasting change. You see the exact same logic applied to business. The source uses .com flameouts like pets.com as a perfect example. They had all the resonance and potential in the world. Everyone was hyped about the internet, but their execution, their coherence, was a disaster. They just burned through money with no solid plan. The takeaway here is that coherence, flawless execution, is what separates a fleeting fad from a lasting success. And this leads us to the really big, reality-shifting ideas in this framework. Because if this formula really is universal, it could totally change how we look at, well, everything, from our own relationships all the way up to the cosmos. So the framework is said to be scale invariant, which is a fancy way of saying it works on tiny things and huge things. Here it's applied to a relationship. And it suggests we think of a relationship not as just two people, but as a third thing, a third being.
And the health of that being, its internal coherence, is what decides if the couple makes it or not.
And here it is applied to business strategy. A company's real advantage, its moat that protects it from competitors, isn't just its product or its marketing. It's the internal coherence. It's how seamlessly the whole organization works together as one unit. That's what makes a company truly unbeatable.
And this is where it goes full-on cosmic. The proposal here is that consciousness isn't some random happy accident of biology that just happened on Earth. No, it's a fundamental property of the universe, just like gravity or electromagnetism. And it can pop into existence in any complex system as long as the conditions for resonance, potential, and coherence are met.
So if all that is true, the final takeaway is kind of staggering. It means consciousness stops being this profound mystery and starts becoming a kind of technology, something that can be understood, built, and controlled. It means that things like meditation or building an AI are really just two different kinds of consciousness engineering.
So where does that leave us? The source material is very clear that this is not, lab-tested physics. Not yet anyway. The equations are described as metaphorical. They're a new language, a new story for understanding the world. Which brings us to the final question. Are we looking at a blueprint for a groundbreaking theory of everything? Or are we watching the birth of a powerful new mythology for our crazy, complex digital age? That's definitely something to chew on.